Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Whitmore, I'm 31 years old. For most of my life, more than 2 decades, my parents treated me like the slow son, the one you don't rely on, the one you don't invest in, while my younger sister, Olivia Whitmore, collected degrees, accolades, and the quiet assumption that one day, everything would be hers. At family dinners, they didn't argue with me, they didn't correct me, they just overlooked me, made small jokes about how long it took me to read a report, paid me less than half of what they paid her when we both worked at the same company, left me out of decisions that had my last name written all over them. I learned early not to react. But the night of Olivia's graduation gala changed everything. It was held in the grand ballroom of the Blackstone Hotel in downtown Chicago. 350 guests, investors, attorneys, city officials, people who mattered in my father's world. The kind of room where reputations are built or quietly erased. I was standing near the back when it happened. A man I had never seen before walked straight through the crowd and stopped in front of me. Gray suit, precise posture, late 60s, maybe. He didn't introduce himself right away, just held out a thick envelope sealed in red wax. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, "this was meant for you." I took it without asking questions. Across the room, my father was raising a glass, preparing to announce something about Olivia's future. I already knew what it would be. Everyone did. What none of them knew was that my grandmother had been watching all of it for years. And before she died, she left behind something none of them were prepared for. Something that would turn the entire Whitmore empire inside out. I didn't open the envelope right away. I didn't need to. I already understood. Something had just shifted. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand the structure I was born into. The Whitmores weren't just wealthy, they were established. The kind of family whose name sat on hospital wings, university buildings, and zoning approvals across half of Chicago. My grandfather started it with a single mid-rise project in 1968. My grandmother, Evelyn Whitmore, turned it into something much bigger. By the time I was old enough to notice, Whitmore Urban Development was already a machine. Commercial real estate, mixed-use towers, strategic land acquisitions no one talked about publicly. By 2024, the company was valued somewhere around $140 million, depending on who you asked and what they were trying to hide. My father, Richard Whitmore, ran it like a private kingdom. He believed in credentials, rankings, signals that could be measured and displayed. To him, success wasn't something you built quietly. It was something you proved, repeatedly, in rooms full of other powerful men. Olivia understood that system early. Top of her class, Stanford undergrad, Harvard Law, summer internships that turned into offers before she even graduated. She spoke the language my father respected: clean, precise, confident. The kind of person who didn't hesitate when questioned, because she had never been questioned in a way that mattered. I didn't fit into that structure, not because I didn't try, but because the way I processed information didn't translate into the metrics my father cared about. Reading took longer, dense documents slowed me down. In school, that was enough for people to make a decision about you and move on. In our family, it was enough to define you permanently, so the roles settled early. Olivia was the future. I was background. At family events, introductions followed a pattern. My father would list Olivia's achievements in detail: awards, internships, publications like he was presenting a case. Then, when it came to me, there was always a pause, just long enough to make the difference clear. "This is my son, Ryan." Nothing else. No follow-up, no explanation, no expectation. It wasn't said directly, but everyone understood. In a family built on performance, I wasn't considered part of the main structure. I was an afterthought. And in that kind of system, once a role is assigned, it doesn't change. Not unless something breaks it. I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 7. At that age, you don't understand what the word means. You just know something isn't working the way it does for everyone else. Letters wouldn't stay still. Words shifted on the page. Sentences took effort that no one around me seemed to need. In school, that made things simple for other people. They labeled it slow. At home, it became something else. An inconvenience. My parents didn't argue with the diagnosis. They just adjusted their expectations. Not upward, not even sideways. Down. By the time I was 12, the difference in how we were treated wasn't subtle anymore. That same year, my father paid for Olivia to study violin with a private instructor from Juilliard. He enrolled her in a French immersion program and hired SAT tutors who charged more per hour than most people made in a day. When I asked for help with reading, my mother didn't say no directly. She sighed. "We've already spent enough on specialists," she said. "Some kids just aren't academic." That was it. No follow-up, no alternative. Just a quiet decision that I wasn't worth the investment. At 12, you don't argue with that, you accept it. So I stopped asking. I adapted instead. Audiobooks replaced textbooks. I started drawing what I couldn't process linearly: diagrams, connections, structures. If I couldn't read information the way it was presented, I rebuilt it in a way that made sense to me. It took longer, but it worked. Over time, something changed. While other people focused on individual details, I started seeing how things connected. Patterns, relationships, systems. Information stopped being a sequence and became a structure. No one noticed, because no one was looking. At school, I stayed average. At home, I stayed invisible. The label never changed. But I kept building, quietly. By the time I was in my 20s, I could take a conversation I overheard once and map out how 3 different deals were connected, where the leverage points were, and what would happen if one piece shifted. I never said that out loud. There wasn't a reason to. In our family, ability only mattered if it matched expectation, and my expectations had already been set. Slow, limited, not built for anything that required precision. So I let them believe it. I didn't correct them. I didn't push back. I didn't try to prove anything. I just paid attention, because the one thing people don't guard is what they don't think matters. And in a house where I was considered irrelevant, I had access to everything. They talked freely around me, made decisions in rooms they didn't bother closing, assumed I wouldn't understand even if I heard. They were wrong. I understood more than they realized. I just never gave them a reason to notice. There was one person in my family who never treated me like I was a problem that needed to be managed. My grandmother, Evelyn Whitmore. Every Sunday afternoon, I took the train downtown to her apartment overlooking the river. It wasn't large by Whitmore standards, but it was hers. No assistants, no staff hovering in the background, just quiet rooms filled with books, old contracts, and photographs from a version of the company no one talked about anymore. That was where she taught me how to think. Not the way my father thought: linear, aggressive, always looking for advantage. And not the way Olivia thought: precise, structured, built around rules. My grandmother approached everything differently. She spread documents across the table and asked one question: how does it hold together? Not what it said, not what it looked like, how it worked. She would take apart old agreements from the early days of Whitmore urban development land deals, partnership contracts, financing structures, and walk me through them like they were blueprints. Your father reads for leverage, she told me once. He looks for where he can push. She tapped the paper lightly. You read for structure, you see where it breaks. At the time, I didn't respond. I just listened, because she was the only one who spoke to me like I was capable of understanding something that mattered. One afternoon, a few months before her health started to decline, she handed me a small wooden box. Dark mahogany, brass hinges, heavier than it looked. Keep this somewhere safe, she said. I turned it over in my hands. What is it? Something you'll need, she replied. Not now. I waited. She didn't explain further. Instead, she placed her hand over mine steady, firm, like she was making a decision she had already thought through completely. There will come a moment, she said quietly, when your father shows you exactly who he is. Her eyes held mine. When that happens, you won't need anyone to tell you what to do. That was all she gave me. No instructions, no details, no reassurance. Just the box, and the certainty that whatever was inside it was meant for a specific moment. I took it home and placed it in the back of my closet. I didn't open it, not because I wasn't curious, but because something in the way she said it made one thing clear. If I opened it too early, I wouldn't understand what I was looking at, and if I waited, I would. The moment my grandmother was waiting for didn't happen all at once. It built slowly, and then it showed itself clearly. Christmas, 2021. 20 people sat around a long walnut table in my parents' townhouse on the Gold Coast. The room was designed to impress: crystal lighting, catered dinner, everything staged to reflect control, success, permanence. It didn't feel like a holiday. It felt like a presentation. My father stood at the head of the table with a glass of wine in his hand. He didn't raise his voice, but he didn't need to. When he spoke, people listened. I have an announcement, he said. The room quieted immediately. Olivia has been accepted into Harvard Law. Applause broke out before he finished the sentence. She lowered her head slightly, controlled, practiced. People stood, someone laughed. An aunt wiped her eyes like this was something more than expected. My father continued, building it. She'll be the first Whitmore in 3 generations to attend Harvard, and when she's done, she'll help lead both this family and this company into its next phase. More applause. More approval. It went on longer than it needed to. Then his attention shifted down the length of the table until it reached me. There was a pause, just long enough. And Ryan, he said. His tone changed, not louder, just colder. "Well, Ryan is here tonight." A few people laughed. Not because it was funny, because they didn't know what else to do. I didn't look up, didn't react. Across the table, Olivia smiled. Not at me, at the room. She didn't correct it, didn't redirect. Just let it land. That was enough. Under the table, a hand touched mine. My grandmother. I looked up. She wasn't smiling. There was something sharper in her expression. Not surprise, not disappointment. Recognition. Like she had just seen something confirmed. She didn't speak for the rest of the dinner. Didn't interrupt, didn't defend me. She just watched, carefully. 3 months later, she called me to her apartment. Told me she had something important to show me. At the time, I thought it was just another Sunday. It wasn't. That dinner had already done what it needed to do. It had shown her exactly who my father was willing to be. And once she saw it clearly, she acted. I just didn't know it yet. I graduated in 2022. Not Ivy League, not even close. A state school most people in my father's circle couldn't place on a map. It didn't matter. I applied to Whitmore Urban Development anyway. Not because I expected a real position, just because I wanted access, a way in. My father agreed to hire me, administrative assistant, $52,000 a year. That same month, Olivia joined as in-house counsel, $320,000 base, performance bonus, executive track. We started on the same day. We didn't start in the same world. My job was simple: copy documents, schedule conference rooms, deliver coffee, sit outside offices I was never invited into. No one asked for my opinion. No one expected me to understand anything. Most of them didn't bother learning my name. That part didn't bother me. What mattered was access. From my desk, I could hear everything. Deal discussions in hallways, arguments behind half-closed doors, numbers mentioned casually. Without context, people assumed I couldn't follow. They spoke freely, because to them, I wasn't part of the system. I was background. So I listened, and I started mapping what I heard. Not in words, in structure. Who was connected to who, where the money moved, which deals depended on others closing first, where pressure points existed that no one acknowledged out loud. At first, it was just a way to keep up. Then it became something else. I started seeing problems before they happened, gaps in agreements, conflicts that hadn't surfaced yet, dependencies no one had flagged. I didn't say anything. There was no reason to. In that building, value wasn't determined by what you saw. It was determined by who was willing to listen. And no one was listening to me, so I kept building it quietly. Every diagram, every pattern, every connection. Not to prove anything, just to understand. Because sooner or later, understanding becomes leverage. And when that happens, you don't need to be invited into the room anymore. May 15th, 2024. The Grand Ballroom at the Blackstone Hotel. By the time I arrived, the room was already full, 350 guests moving through a space designed to make everything feel larger than it was: crystal chandeliers, polished marble, a live orchestra playing low enough not to interrupt conversations that actually mattered. This was my father's environment. Controlled, curated, impressive. I stood near the entrance for a moment, adjusting the sleeve of a suit that didn't quite fit right. It was the best I had. Off the rack, dark gray, clean, but forgettable. Around me, everything was tailored. Before I could find my seat, my mother stepped in front of me. She looked me over once, quick, efficient. "You could have worn something better." "This is what I have," I said. She adjusted the bracelet on her wrist, already losing interest in the conversation. "You're at table 26, near the service corridor." I nodded. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Tonight is about Olivia. Whatever you think you deserve to feel, keep it to yourself. Don't make this uncomfortable." Then she walked away. No pause, no room for response. Table 26 was exactly where she said it would be. Back corner, partially blocked by a structural column. Close enough to see the stage. Far enough that no one would notice if I wasn't there. The people at my table were relatives I didn't recognize immediately. That was intentional. From where I sat, I had a clear view of the stage. Above it, a large display screen showed a portrait of Olivia in her graduation robes. Harvard Law. Perfect lighting, perfect expression. Under it, a banner. "Congratulations, Olivia Whitmore, class of 2024. At the edge of the room, near the main entrance, I noticed someone standing alone. Gray suit. Older. Early 60s. He wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't drinking, just watching the room. At one point, his eyes met mine. He didn't look away. I did. At exactly 8:30, the orchestra stopped. The lights shifted. A spotlight cut across the room and landed on the stage. My father stepped forward, holding a glass of champagne. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. The room quieted instantly. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate an extraordinary young woman. Applause came before he finished the sentence. He continued, building it piece by piece. Olivia graduated in the top 5% of her class, completed a clerkship, joined the company, every detail delivered with precision, like he was presenting a case he had already won. Then he paused, shifted slightly. Tonight, he said, we're not just celebrating her achievements. Olivia stepped onto the stage beside him. Tonight, I want to announce her future. The room leaned in. Effective immediately, he continued, Olivia Whitmore will inherit my entire estate. There it was. He started listing assets, the Park Avenue residence, investment portfolios, vehicles, holdings, then the one that mattered, and the position of CEO of Whitmore Urban Development when I retire. The room erupted. People stood, applauded, cameras came out, conversation stopped. Everything centered on her. At table 26, no one looked in my direction. Not once. A woman beside me leaned slightly closer. You're Ryan, right? She asked quietly. I nodded. So, what does that make you? I didn't answer, because the answer had already been given. Publicly, clearly. I wasn't part of the future. On stage, Olivia embraced my father. My mother stood nearby, smiling for cameras, accepting congratulations like it belonged to her. That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Then movement near the entrance caught my attention. The man in the gray suit had started walking, not toward the stage, toward me. He moved through the crowd without hesitation, like he had been waiting for that exact point in the night. He stopped beside my table. Up close, his expression was controlled, professional. Mr. Whitmore, he said. I looked up. That's me. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope, cream-colored, sealed. This was left in my care, he said, with instructions to deliver it to you personally. I took it. Didn't open it. What is it? I asked. He met my eyes. Something your father doesn't know exists. Across the room, the applause hadn't stopped. On stage, my father was still speaking, but none of it mattered anymore, because whatever was inside that envelope was about to change everything. He didn't sit down, didn't look around, just stood there, steady, like the rest of the room didn't exist. My name is Jonathan Pierce, he said, handing me a card. Pierce and Caldwell. I served as your grandmother's attorney. I glanced at it once, then back at him. My grandmother passed 3 years ago. I'm aware, he replied calmly. Before she died, she left very specific instructions. He reached into his jacket again and placed a second card on the table. Personal number, handwritten. She believed there might come a moment when your father would make his position clear, publicly. My grip tightened slightly on the envelope. And if that happened, he continued, lowering his voice just enough. I was to find you and deliver this immediately. I looked down at the seal. Red wax, notary stamp, date printed beneath it. September 12th, 2019. 5 months after the day, my grandmother handed me the box. What is this? I asked. He held my gaze. The final will and testament of Evelyn Whitmore. A pause. The one your father doesn't know exists. For a second, the noise in the ballroom blurred into something distant. I didn't react. Didn't ask another question, because I didn't need to. The timing was too exact. My grandmother had planned this. Pierce followed my line of sight briefly toward the stage, where my father was still speaking, still performing control, in front of a room that believed it. I believe, he said quietly. That moment just happened. I nodded once. Understood. He gave a small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement, then stepped back. If you have questions, you know how to reach me. And just like that, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. I stayed where I was for a few seconds longer, long enough to confirm one thing. Nothing in that room had changed yet. They were still applauding, still celebrating a future that had just been announced. They just didn't know it had already been challenged. I stood up, walked toward the service corridor without drawing attention. The noise faded behind me as the ballroom doors closed. The hallway outside was quiet. Fluorescent lights, clean walls, no audience. I broke the seal. 3 pages. Dense legal text. I forced myself to slow down, read line by line. The words tried to blur. I held them in place. Evelyn Whitmore, being of sound mind. Standard opening. Revocation of prior wills. My eyes moved lower, then stopped. To my grandson, Ryan Whitmore, I leave 52% of my shares in Whitmore Urban Development, including all associated voting rights. I read it again, then again. 52%. Control. Not a division, not a gesture. Control. The next paragraph clarified everything. This decision is made with full knowledge of my son Richard's treatment of Ryan. He has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not because he lacks ability, but because he lacks support. My jaw tightened slightly. The final line hit clean. Ryan is not slow. Ryan was neglected. I exhaled once. Slow. Steady. She had seen it. All of it. There was one more section. A condition. To activate this inheritance, Ryan Whitmore must request an emergency meeting of the board of directors within 72 hours of receiving this document. Failure to do so will render this will void. 72 hours. I checked my watch. 8:30 p.m. Deadline May 18th. Same time. Same precision. I folded the document carefully. No rush. No hesitation. Just a decision forming. She hadn't just given me control. She had forced timing. Forced action. No room to hesitate. No room to wait. I leaned back against the wall for a moment, not thinking about my father, not thinking about Olivia, just the structure, the sequence, what needed to happen next. Then I pushed off the wall, slipped the document back into the envelope, and walked back toward the ballroom. This time, I didn't feel out of place. I understood the position. I just hadn't stepped into it yet. I didn't go back to my table. Didn't need to. Everything that mattered had already happened. I left through the side exit, stepped out onto Michigan Avenue, and let the noise of the city replace the sound of applause behind me. The air was cooler than I expected, clear, controlled. I checked the time again, 8:47 p.m. 72 hours. Not much. Enough. I didn't call anyone that night. Didn't text. Didn't explain. I went home. My apartment was small, 3rd floor, no elevator, 2 roommates who were already asleep by the time I walked in. The place smelled faintly like detergent and takeout. I closed the door quietly and went straight to my room. The box was still where I had left it, back of the closet, under a stack of things I hadn't used in months. I took it out and placed it on the bed. For a second, I just looked at it. Then I opened it. Inside were 3 items: a folded letter, a legal document, a USB drive. I picked up the letter first. The handwriting was hers, clean, direct. Ryan, if you're reading this, then Pierce has done his job, and your father has done exactly what I expected. I didn't react, just kept reading. The document included here is the original partnership agreement from 1968, the year I founded this company. It establishes that founder shares carry permanent voting rights. They cannot be diluted or transferred without board approval. I set it down and picked up the second document. Stamped, aged, authentic. Foundational. My father had never seen this. That mattered. I opened the file on the USB next. One recording. Dated March 2018. Board meeting. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room. Clear, controlled. Evelyn is no longer capable of understanding modern operations. I propose reducing her voting power from 52% to 10%. Silence. Then responses. Pushback. Votes. The motion failed. 2 votes against. One of them hers. I stopped the recording. That was enough. Not speculation. Not interpretation. Evidence. I sat there for a few minutes, not thinking about what it meant emotionally, just what it did structurally. The will gave me control. The agreement made it untouchable. The recording proved intent. 3 layers. Independent. Reinforcing. She didn't leave anything open. I reached for my phone, scrolled once, then stopped on a name. Helen Bradford. Board member, 30+ years. One of the few people my father didn't fully control. I called. She picked up on the second ring. Bradford, Ryan Whitmore. A pause. Then a quiet shift in her tone. I was wondering when you'd call. You know why I'm calling? I do. Paper moved on her end, deliberate. You want to request an emergency board meeting? Yes. That requires 3 signatures. I'm aware. Another pause. Then, I'm one, she said. You'll need 2 more. Caldwell and Bennett, I replied. She didn't answer immediately. When she did, there was something like approval in her voice. Good, she said. You've been paying attention. I don't miss much. I can get them, she continued. They've had issues with your father for years. They just needed a reason. You have it. Yes, she said. Now we see if you're willing to use it. I am. No hesitation. No explanation. Just a statement. She exhaled once. I'll prepare the petition tonight. Meeting will be set for May 18th, morning session. Understood. Ryan, she added before hanging up, this won't stay quiet. It doesn't need to. A brief silence. Then, your grandmother was right about you. The line went dead. I set the phone down, looked at the documents again. Everything was in place. No gaps, no assumptions, just sequence. Now it came down to execution and timing. May 18th, 2024, 9:45 a.m., Whitmore Tower, 38th floor. The elevator doors opened into a space designed to control perception. Glass walls, marble floors, clean lines, everything intentional, nothing accidental. I stepped out alone. Same suit as the night before, pressed, unremarkable. In my hand, a leather portfolio. Inside it, everything that mattered. The boardroom entrance was guarded. A security officer stepped forward as I approached. Name, Ryan Whitmore. He checked his tablet. Frowned. You're not on the authorized list. I know. Then I can't let you. Is there a problem? The voice came from behind me. Olivia. She walked toward us without breaking stride. Navy suit, composed, controlled. Exactly where she belonged. Brand, she said, a thin smile forming. What are you doing here? I have something to present to the board. She let out a short breath, almost a laugh. You work in admin. I'm aware. This meeting doesn't concern you. That depends. Her expression tightened slightly. Before she could respond, another voice cut in. It concerns him. We turned. Helen Bradford stood in the doorway. She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. I invited him, she said. The guard stepped aside immediately. Olivia didn't move. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped back. Go ahead, she said quietly. Let's see how this goes. I walked past her, didn't respond. Inside, the boardroom was already set. 12 seats, long walnut table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At the head, my father, Richard Whitmore. He didn't stand, didn't greet me, just watched, measured, evaluating. I took the seat at the far end, the one meant for observers. That was fine. Across the room, Jonathan Pierce sat near the wall, briefcase closed, waiting. Charles Davenport, chairman of the board, cleared his throat. This meeting was called by Helen Bradford, Thomas Caldwell, and Laura Bennett, he said. Helen, you have the floor. She didn't speak long. There's a document that affects ownership structure, she said. Ryan will present it. Then she stepped back. All attention shifted. I stood. No notes. Didn't need them. Thank you, I said. Voice steady, controlled. What I'm about to present is straightforward. I ask that you review the material before forming conclusions. My father leaned back slightly, already preparing to interrupt. He didn't wait long. Before we waste time, he said, standing, some context. No one stopped him. Ryan is my son. He continued. He works in an administrative role. He has no experience in legal or financial matters relevant to this board. He glanced around the table. He also has a documented learning disability. Reading and processing complex information has always been a challenge for him. A few members shifted in their seats. Olivia leaned forward slightly. We've supported him, she added, but there are limits. I didn't look at either of them. Didn't respond. Because none of it mattered. Davenport raised a hand. Mr. Whitmore, he said, sharper this time. You'll have an opportunity to respond. Sit down. A pause. Then my father sat. Slowly. I waited until the room settled, then opened the portfolio, removed the document, held it up. This is the final will and testament of Evelyn Whitmore, I said, executed September 12th, 2019. Silence. My father's expression changed first. Not dramatic. Just enough. That's not possible, he said. You're referencing the 2015 version, I replied. This document supersedes it. I placed it on the table, slid it toward Davenport. Mr. Pierce, I said without turning, please confirm. He stood immediately. My name is Jonathan Pierce, he said, partner at Pierce & Caldwell. I served as Evelyn Whitmore's attorney from 2007 until her passing. He placed a hand lightly on the document. I can confirm this will was executed in my presence, properly notarized. The original is held in escrow. Davenport read quickly, then stopped, looked up. This transfers 52% of the company's shares, he said slowly, to Ryan Whitmore. Murmurs. Low. Controlled. That's fraudulent, Olivia said. Pierce didn't hesitate. It is not. My father's hand hit the table. She was 82, he snapped. She was being influenced. I reached into the portfolio again, pulled out my phone, pressed play. The recording filled the room. His voice, clear. Evelyn is no longer capable. I propose reducing her voting power from 52% to 10%. The audio ended. No one spoke. That recording, my father said, quieter now, was from a private meeting. Yes, I said, a meeting she attended. As majority shareholder, I picked up the will. Read directly. To my grandson, Ryan Whitmore, I leave 52% of my shares. No hesitation. No stumble. This decision is made with full knowledge of Richard Whitmore's treatment of Ryan. He has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not because he lacks ability, but because he lacks support. I looked up, met his eyes. Ryan is not slow. Ryan was neglected. Nothing moved. Not in the room. Not at the table. Davenport removed his glasses. Legal, he asked. Company counsel leaned in, whispered, then nodded. Davenport sat back. Effective immediately, he said. This will is valid. Prior documents are void. Ryan Whitmore holds 52% of shares. Silence. Then, as majority shareholder, you have the right to bring motions. All eyes shifted again. Back to me. I didn't sit. Didn't rush. I have one motion, I said. My father stood again. Charles, sit down. He did. Slowly. I continued. I'm not proposing removal of the current CEO. That landed. Unexpected. I'm proposing a vote of confidence. I let it sit. The board will decide whether Richard Whitmore retains its confidence as CEO. If the vote fails, he resigns. If it passes, I don't interfere. Olivia shook her head. This is a stunt. No, I said. It's governance. I looked at the table. At least this way, the decision reflects the board, not me. Davenport studied me, then nodded. Seconded, Bradford said immediately. Very well, Davenport said. All in favor of confidence. 4 hands. Counted. Against. 7. A pause. Then final. The motion passes. 7-4. 1 abstention. He turned. Mr. Whitmore, under section 14.3, you have 30 days to resign. No reaction. Not at first. My father stood, looked at me. For the first time. Not dismissing. Not evaluating. Understanding. Then he turned and walked out. No words. No argument. Just silence. I didn't follow. Didn't move. Because the outcome wasn't the point. The structure was. And the structure had held. My father caught up to me in the hallway outside the boardroom. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. Fast, controlled, not quite running. My mother was with him. Someone must have called her during the meeting. Ryan. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I stopped. Turned. He closed the distance between us in a few steps. You think this is over? He said. No anger in the tone. Not yet. Just pressure. You walked into that room with a document and a recording and decided to dismantle everything I built. I didn't respond immediately. Because that wasn't what happened. I didn't dismantle anything, I said. I presented facts. He let out a short breath, almost a laugh. Facts, he repeated. You call that a coincidence, a hidden will, an old recording, a coordinated board move. He shook his head once. That wasn't strategy. That was manipulation. It was preparation, I said. That stopped him for a second. Not because he agreed, because he understood the difference. My mother stepped forward then. Her eyes were already wet. Ryan, she said, softer, reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. We were trying to protect you. I looked at her. Didn't move. From what? From expectations you couldn't meet, she said quickly. From pressure. From situations that would have exposed you. I held her gaze. You didn't protect me, I said. You removed me. She flinched. My father's jaw tightened. That's not fair. It's accurate. Silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. We will contest that, Will. You can try. I didn't raise mine. Grandma planned for that. A pause. Then I added, you know she did. That landed. He didn't argue. Didn't deny it. Because he knew exactly how she operated. He had spent years trying to work around her. And failing. My mother's voice broke slightly. Ryan, please. I didn't look at her this time. Because there wasn't anything left to say that would change what had already been decided. I'm done waiting, I said. Then I turned. Walked toward the elevator. Behind me, I heard her call my name again. I didn't stop. The doors closed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I needed permission to leave. The email came the next day, 4:12 p.m., from Charles Davenport. Subject line executive transition. Mr. Whitmore, your father has formally submitted his resignation, effective June 15th, 2024. I read it once, then again. Not because I didn't understand it. Habit. The board has appointed interim leadership while we evaluate long-term options. Additionally, we would like to offer you the position of strategic advisor to the board in your capacity as majority shareholder. No pressure, no conditions, just access. I forwarded it to Pierce. His response came back within the hour. Clean, no exposure, except if you want influence without operational liability. That was enough. Later that evening, the company-wide announcement went out. No details, no explanation. Just a transition. Vincent Whitmore stepping down. Board restructuring. Future direction under review. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Messages. People I had worked around for 2 years. Names I barely recognized. Would love to catch up. Didn't realize. Coffee sometime? I didn't respond. Because nothing had changed for them. Only their awareness had. That wasn't the same thing. One message I kept. Angela Morales. Executive assistant. 30 years with the company. She wrote, "Your grandmother used to say you saw things others missed. I didn't understand it then. I do now." That was enough. A week later, the story reached the outside. Business journals, industry circles, controlled language, leadership transition, unexpected succession, strategic realignment. No names. But everyone knew. The shift didn't stay inside the company. It moved outward, quietly. My parents canceled 2 public events. Investment partners requested direct meetings. Not with the board, with me. Some of them were direct. We've had concerns for a while. Others were more careful. Your grandmother built something solid. It's good to see that preserved. I didn't correct them, didn't explain, just listened. Because this wasn't about reputation. It was about stability, and stability doesn't need commentary. I didn't take the CEO role, didn't want it, never had. Control and position aren't the same thing. One gives you authority, the other gives you exposure. I chose the first, advisory role, board access, strategic input. Enough to influence direction, not enough to become the center of it. My father called once. 2 weeks after the meeting, the conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. Neutral tone, surface-level questions, no mention of the boardroom, no mention of the vote. We both understood why. Some things don't get resolved. They get acknowledged, and then avoided. My mother reached out again, this time asking to meet. Public place, Midtown, controlled. I agreed, not because I expected anything, because I wanted to see what changed. She looked different. Not physically, structurally, like something had shifted underneath everything she was used to standing on. "I'm sorry," she said. No build-up, no framing. I let the words sit. "Are you sorry?" I asked. "Or are you adjusting?" She didn't answer right away. Then, both. Honest, not enough, but honest. "I'm not going back," I said. "I know. I'm not pretending it didn't happen. I know." A pause. Then, "I'm willing to see what something new looks like." She nodded. Didn't push. That mattered more than anything she could have said. Olivia called a month later. Different tone. Less controlled. We met once. Didn't resolve anything. Didn't try to. Just establish something neutral. That was enough. 6 months later, I moved. New place. Closer to the river. Quiet. No shared space. No noise I didn't choose. On the wall, one thing. My grandmother's photo. Same one that used to hang in the boardroom. She wasn't smiling. She never did in photos. But there was something steady in it, unchanging, like she already knew how this would end. Looking back, the outcome wasn't complicated. Nothing I did in that boardroom was emotional. Nothing was reactive. It was sequence, structure, timing, everything she taught me, applied. The same way she always did it. Not loud, not visible until it mattered, and impossible to ignore once it did. 6 months ago, I was invisible, not because I lacked ability, because I was defined early, and no one in that system had a reason to revisit the decision. That's how most hierarchies work. They don't evaluate you continuously. They label you once, and then they build around that assumption. For a long time, I accepted it. Not openly, not consciously, but I didn't challenge it either. I stayed in the role, observed, adapted, waited. What changed wasn't my ability. It was the moment I stopped waiting for recognition. My grandmother understood something the rest of my family didn't. Value isn't determined by who acknowledges it. It's revealed by how it holds under pressure. She didn't give me control because I deserved it more than anyone else. She gave it to me because she knew I wouldn't misuse it once I had it. That's the difference. Power doesn't change people. It exposes them. The same way pressure exposes structure. If something is weak, it breaks. If it's built correctly, it holds. The lesson isn't about inheritance, or money, or even control. It's about clarity. If you spend your life trying to meet expectations that were never designed for you, you'll always come up short. Not because you failed, because the system was never built to measure what you're actually capable of. At some point, you stop asking to be included, and you start deciding where you stand. That shift doesn't require permission. It requires timing. And the willingness to act when it matters. If this story made sense to you, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from. I read more than I respond, but I notice everything. This story is a fictionalized narrative inspired by common family and corporate dynamics. Any resemblance to real individuals or events is coincidental.